Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a while since I've been posted any videos, coronavirus, everything else normal. So today we're going to be sharing my thoughts on another video by Jubilee, and it's how can I be anti-racist? So, um, I have my views on this. Is really that sentence, how can you be anti-racist, makes no sense to me because it just doesn't make sense because like that's putting the premise that everyone is racist and you have to try not to be, but that's me inherently thinking everyone is a good person. So let's actually start watching this and see where this goes.
How do you think actively you can dismantle anti-black attitude first in your personal circle?
See, now that's the and this video was made last year if I remember correctly. I can go check in a second, but the premise of them making it specifically about black people makes no sense to me off the bat because racism isn't specifically against black people as a whole. It can be against Indian people. I'm half Indian, so like currently there's this whole stop Asian hate thing, which somehow I'm involved in the whole Black Lives Matter because I'm black, and I'm half Indian, so stop Asian hate. I'm in that realm too. So the whole premise of racism is two things. It's the fact that you either think something is superior in comparison to something, or you think something is inferior in comparison to something else. Now, what a lot of people focus on is the inferior aspect of it, but people don't focus on the superiority aspect of it. So simply saying you are better than somebody due to their race is racism. Simply saying you are worse than somebody due to their race is also racism. It's a very weird coin that people are trying to change the definition of as a whole, but pretty much the easiest way, if I had to jump in this video, the easiest way to sum it up is stop comparing yourself to other people and compare yourself to the person that you were yesterday. Because in every self-improvement environment, comparing yourself to another person is not a ideal resource or ideal, I forgot the actual pop word. It's not ideal for actual success. But let's keep watching before I keep rambling.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
I think
I don't know. Gosh, sorry.
I remember, I feel bad calling my family out. We were at the DMV once and my mom made a comment about, well, you're in America, you should speak English, because someone was speaking to their family member in, I think, a Middle Eastern language, and I corrected her. I was like, America doesn't have a national language.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. That just, yes, it does. So there's two problems with her statement because she inherently thinks it was against their race off the bat, where it could be because like I live in an environment where it's predominantly Spanish and Portuguese, which is cool. In all honesty, I'm gonna teach myself Spanish, because it's more ideal for my location. Now, her premise where America isn't has it's English. It's literally English. Everything's written in English. I don't understand when people say this. It makes no sense. Everything is written in English. Like like me, as I said, I'm in an environment where, especially the area I live, a lot of people speak Spanish or Portuguese. For me specifically, it will be very beneficial for me to learn the language of the people that are around me. That's not really the majority, but it's like halfsies. So it would be more beneficial for me in that situation to learn Spanish because it'll make my life easier. In that situation, like she completely is like, I think it's called a straw man. I don't remember the correct term, but yes, America is an English-speaking country. Now, in the future, it might deviate from that, but generally, it is an English-speaking country. That's why all documentation is in English. That's why pretty much all TV is in English. It is the majority language, so by default, it should be treated as the primary because majority of people will understand it, and it'll make majority of people's lives easier. Now, what her mom says is just her being nosy and an asshole, because in all honesty, she shouldn't be paying attention to somebody else's conversation. And yes, you could somewhat say it is racist depending on the person's race, but if you don't know their race, see, that's where it's like, is it racist? Is it? Because she's implying they're racist to something. You could say they're Spanish, they could be white, they could be black. Fun fact, being Spanish doesn't stop you from being white or black. So let's keep listening.
We're a nation of immigrants.
Within like the Hispanic community, a common comment that's brought up is that they don't want their daughters and sons to marry or date Black people. A lot of the times there's a sense of humor behind that.
That is a true statement, and it's not specifically in the Hispanic community as a whole. It can be boiled down a little bit in reverse. So it's more they want their kids or their offspring to stay in their racial circle. Same thing with Indian people, same thing with Black people, same thing with white people. Every single race does this, and that's more tribalism. In all honesty, if you had to boil it down to what it is, which I understand where the idea comes from. Making it right is different. In the end of the day, if whoever you want to be with, whoever you want to be with, but the thought process is coming from tribalism. That's you want people to stay in your tribe, because if you leave your tribe gets smaller. But that's all Darwinism and everything else from like 5 billion years ago.
It's just a joke or it's harmless and it's not serious. But to me, even if it is a joke, it's not a joke that's funny.
Out of my entire family, I'm actually the only one who is in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. And it is very difficult to talk to my family.
This is definitely a hindsight is 2020 type of situation, because like this is in the past, and the whole premise of this is actually funny to me, because he's saying he's the only person in support of the whole Black Lives Matter movement, which I have my gripes and concerns with it as a whole. But like the whole Stop Asian Hate thing is, imagine if now his family needs help and a bunch of people are like, we're not helping you. It's whatever. I just think it's kind of an irony being from the future and this is a video from the past.
One thing that I want to do is to get together and perhaps have like a movie night and suggest,
I hate his shirt.
for example, 13th, that does explore the concept of systemic racism.
Let the people know around you the current effects of like colonization and the attitude that we've all gotten kind of from being taught through an entire lens of white supremacy. Everybody thinks of it as kind of a past thing.
What does that even mean? What does it even mean? I don't even... You can tell she was scanning her brain for the correct answer to say this, but like, speaking of which, I'm blind. One of them have my glasses on. They're messed up. But what does that even mean? If anybody knows exactly what she meant by that, please post it below, because I don't understand that whole segment of what her thought process is.
I remember the first slur when I was like 4 or 5. These guys were like, your skin looks like poop, you know, you smell like shit, we don't want to play with you, you're the color of shit. So it was kind of like, okay, I knew from very young that I was going to encounter, you know, these attitudes.
That is a true statement.
I think
Stuff like
there
that does
is
happen.
internalized racism, because racism is systematic. We get indoctrinated with it. So I see a lot of colorism, lighter, brighter, better. So the closer you are to whiteness, whether it's hair, whether it's the way you speak, or, you know, I see some of that.
Black people who are around people that seek to practice anti-blackness. Be you unapologetically. The more you practice that, the more you put yourself out there without.
See, and that's the thing that I'm very confused about. Like, what is, if there is anti-blackness, what is blackness? Because the whole premise is, how can I be anti-racist, but they're talking about things that are racist. They're not talking about things that can make you not racist. Because everything, if you realize, is they're talking about racist acts or things like the other guy, colorism. That's literally what it is. Like, we're talking about colorism as a whole. They're not talking about how you cannot be that way, except for the Asian guy. He talked about how staying with his family. Nobody's gonna do that. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, you have fun. If your parents ain't listening to you already, have fun trying to have them sit down and do anything. Nobody wants to sit down anyway. But so far they haven't really even given you an example of what you as a person can do. They're just talking about what's the bad things.
Without any qualms or asking questions, the more it forces those people to see you and to see themselves as a result.
In Hispanic culture, we refer to some African Americans as Negritos, and that's a very derogatory verbiage that is common where we're from in our village, where I came from and immigrated from. Being in this country as an immigrant and now luckily being able to be a DACA recipient and a dreamer, the conversation I talked to my parents about is, you had to have a conversation with me about police because what that means for me being deported possibly one day. But African American kids have to have this conversation about their skin color, which they had no decision of.
Listen to Black people when we talk about anything that makes us uncomfortable. If someone in your inner circle is saying the N-word and thinking you're overreacting or thinking we're overreacting for being offended by it, don't let it slide just because that person is your friend.
My high school was predominantly.
See, but that's the problem. You shouldn't be saying that in the first place. It's not if it is something that is quote unquote offensive to you, it shouldn't matter who says it. At the end of the day, bad is bad and good is good. At least as simple as it can be. So you can be like, oh well, Black people can say too. No, just don't do it as a whole. Like if you completely remove it as a whole, like this is unacceptable. That's why cursing is a thing. It's not like some people can curse, some people can't. Yeah, if you can say it around your friends, you can say it around your friends. But generally, just remove it as a whole. If it is a problematic thing, just remove it.
White people, and white people saying the N-word was very common, and no teacher or adult really questioned it.
When addressing someone who is racist is to address them as hard as it is with a little bit more compassion and kindness. I think when you address someone boldly and attack them, then they're just on defense mode and not willing to listen. Kind of approaching it on more of a level of love helps people to be a little bit more open-minded.
That is the worst way to try to talk to someone is with pure aggression off the bat. It doesn't yield any results.
Oh, that's hard too. Man.
If you have to explain that what you're saying isn't a race joke, maybe you shouldn't be saying it.
Wait, what? Wait, what? If you have to explain what you're saying isn't a racist joke, you shouldn't be saying it. Do you know how many jokes I say that nobody understands? Do you know how many jokes? I say so many jokes that nobody understands or it is misconstrued. And then I have to explain it. Then it's not even funny anymore because you have to explain the joke. It's only funny the first time, but whatever, man. We'll listen to this for me another minute or so because like this isn't really yielding any sort of like results at all.
Yeah, so actually it was towards someone, a person of color, and they mentioned that they had to be in the back of the restaurant because of their color. And I did mention it to a manager actually about how I did feel uncomfortable about certain things being said. And it actually kind of felt like it was being brushed off, and it actually led me to leave the company.
Being paid less than their white counterparts. I know it's the rule that they tell you in the workplace is not to discuss wages. I think if people can push for a more transparent conversations to have in the workplace, that's a good way to be an ally and make sure everyone is being treated and compensated fairly.
So I think
I'm just gonna point out, I think that's actually it started off, I was like kind of but that girl 100% probably best point I've heard. Because wage transparency is something I am in full support of, because everyone can say, or as it is right now, it is illegal to pay two people that do the same job less, like one less than the other. But how can you verify it? Like I personally was in a situation where I was getting paid ridiculously lower than one of my coworkers that literally did nothing. but they were paid a lot more than me. I didn't know. I mean, I wasn't supposed to know, but you eventually find out when they divulge that information. You realize, oh wait, I'm the lowest paid person here. Everybody gets paid drastically more than me. So I'm in 100% support of transparency, because when wages are transparent, they're now forced to pay everyone across the board. Now, of course, people can get a little bit of bonuses, and you can be like, oh, well, this person's better than this one in this place. But that's where promotions are supposed to come in handy. But the way some companies, or even the worst companies, they do this, if you're a very hard worker, they generally don't promote you. And it's one of those pills, like, if anybody's this is a little bit off topic, but that's the reason I love her thing. If you're a very, very hard worker and very good at your job, bring a company a lot of money, they generally don't want to promote you. Some companies that are good because they value you and they realize, hey, if this person's a hard worker here, they can bring value to us in another way. But if it's more sales-based or anything like that, they generally don't want to promote you because they know they're going to lose a bunch of money from doing that. That's why some of the, like, you've all probably worked this, where some of the hardest working people will be there for like 10 to 15 years. And like, why aren't you a manager? Why aren't you this? Why aren't you that? You've been working for so long. And you're just getting passed over for people that do less work. And then they say, oh, well, they have this skill. I'm like, well, you can train this person that's been here for 10 plus years for that skill. But you don't, because you want them to stay there. But imagine if that same person now realizes this person's above them gets paid twice as much, or even 3 times as much. That might be more incentive for them themselves to either A, ask for that promotion, or B, just leave. But I'm a big supporter of transparency of wages, because it would solve a lot of issues on a personal point, and a lot of those very shysty companies or shysty managers, because more so the managers and stuff, they have their quota, their amount. Those ones that are gypping people or underpaying people, they can't get away with it as easily. But I said, we're going to keep watching. Maybe another 30 seconds after this guy, we're going to be pretty much done.
There's a lot of training as far as sexual harassment goes and orderly misconduct within the workforce, but I don't think there's a lot of training videos that touch base on racism.
So they had a full day worth of training, and in this training, someone opened up in that conversation, and she was saying how she's a white woman who has a son who's a white male, a teenager, and she has recently been so fearful of how he's interpreting everything in the way that he might be exposed to a group of people who have a mindset that, you know, Black lives don't matter. It got her so emotional that she was in tears because she was asking for help. How do I educate my son to make sure he understands this?
How do you treat your kid to value other people? Oh my God, bro. What is this? What is this? Whoever that lady, she's a horrible parent. If your kids learn from you what you deem is acceptable or what you deem as not acceptable, they're going to learn that from you for the most point. Yes, their friends will come into play. Yes, outside things will come into play, but that's where you as a parent should be there. Whereas if your kid's hanging out with a bunch of bad kids, you tell them no. You guide them. You tell them you're not allowed to do that. You take away privileges from them. Some sort of punishment, letting them know, like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. This is bad. If they're in school and their school is a bad area, you do what you need to. That is your job as a parent. Like, this lady sounds like she's like, oh, well, I'm an asshole. She's like, you know what? I don't know. I'm an asshole secretly. I want to complain and say I want my kid not to be. It doesn't make sense. Generally, yes, there's trauma and everything else that comes along with therapy and stuff, but like, it's not hard. Like me, I was raised, like, if you see somebody in the street, you say hi to them. Start with that. Like, if you have your kids, tell them, you know, when you make eye contact with somebody, to say hi. If you see them don't do it, like, yo, backhand. I mean, if you really want to, but like, tell them to say hi. Small things like that will set a very big foundation for your kids as they grow up to being polite to everyone else. Like, who goes around, like, is your kid around random people that say Black lives don't matter or whatever it is? Like, if you know that, you need to question if you need to remove them from that situation. Now, if they're old enough to do it by themselves, you kind of have to be like, yeah, but I mean, if they're still in your home, whether they're 26, 30, 5 billion years old, but if they're still in your home, you have to set the premise like, hey, I don't want that in my home. And go from there. At least you're setting the ground rules, but like, that is such an obnoxious thing to hear somebody say. I'm scared that my kid will come to me and say they don't value. They're not going to come to you and say that. It's going to be something, if you notice it, then you address it. But it's not something, you need to teach them your habits. And if your habits is leading them down this road, you need to do some self-reflection about what are you doing? Anyways, I'm not watching any more of this. I ramble on way too much. There's like maybe 1 or 2 good points here. Is this literally people telling stories? The whole point is like, how can I be anti-racist? It's like, it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. Stop comparing yourself to other people and just be nice. Just be nice to everyone. That's it. Anyways, make sure you guys like the video. If you do have another video you would like me to watch, send it to me on Instagram or Renos. Marlon Mohabier is my tag. No space, so nothing. Literally Marlon Mohabier, like my name, because it is my name. And I will see you guys for the next video.